In order to open DDS files in Photoshop, you need NVIDIA Texture Tool, which is this. So just go, I think you can use the Intel one, but I tried the Intel one. It doesn't work very well. So you can just get the NVIDIA from the downloads here and just install it. It's an installer. Otherwise, you won't be able to open DDS files in Photoshop. So let's get started. So I like to have my workspace. So first I need to locate the texture file I want to change. So we're going to go into the editor. I'm going to go into the unit because we're changing a wood elf unit. General, there we go. And I need to find cant, or whatever her name is. We're going to go here. There's the chest item. Fake NPC elf evil. So we're just going to search for that in items. So let's go items. NPC elf evil. I'm going to search for that. And these are all the evil skins. So we've got the worker, the winter mage, the warder, protector, healer, druid. I think I want the healer. So that's item 3646. So now I need to go into the scripts. Item scripts. And I'm just going to search 3646. There it is. And there is the texture. So figure elf healer worm. I'm going to copy that. I've got a folder with all of the game textures in it. So textures. This is a unit, so they're figures, and I'm just going to search. I like to keep things organized, makes it easier. There it is. We've got a transparent texture. We've got a yellow version and a red version. I want the red because it's going to be easier to work with. I'm going to copy those. And I am going to bring them over into my new units that I'm creating. So I've already done the ranger and the warder. So now we're just going to make a new folder called, is this the sorceress? I think this is sorceress. Now in my folders, I like to keep things organized. So I'm going to make a folder called input files. These are the starting files. These are my backups. Just going to put them here. And I'm also going to put them in the main folder. Okay, so this is my backup in case I mess up and I need to get it again. I don't have to search for it. And one other thing, I have a reference folder. So this is the ranger, the warder, the sorceress. Up here I have a reference folder. This is a reference art. So this is a piece of amber and some brown leather. And this is so that I know whether the color is right or not. So I like to keep this handy just in case I need it. So let's go back to the sorceress. And we're just going to open up this texture file. Now, if you don't have DDS, it won't, the NVIDIA tool, it won't work. But if you do, it'll give you these options. If it has transparency, load alpha channel as channel instead of transparency. What Photoshop might do is it might collapse your transparency channel into the actual texture. You don't want that. You want it as a separate channel. You don't need to load bitmaps. It's not necessarily. You'll generate them again anyway. The first thing I'm going to do is just save a PSD file. So this is a Photoshop file. And I'm just going to name this. This is the wild sorceress. This is the main texture. There we go. That I can get rid of this folder. I don't need it. And then we're going to open up the second texture. And again, save as. Photoshop file is at the very top of the options. Wild sorceress. I think this is the cloth. That's why it's transparent. Save. And my mic is working, yep. And we can exit these. Okay. Perfect. You following so far? Everything is good? Alright, cool. So now comes the difficult part. So in these retextures, I'm making a new faction of Wood Elves called the Swamp Elves, basically. So I want them to be dark brown leather with amber highlights. So like golden highlights. Nope, not that file. Let's open up the main file. So instead of the red, we're going to turn this into an amber color. Because it makes sense for the Wood Elves, right? They get amber from the trees. And I want to change all of the green bits of the texture into browns. So, do you see the layers on the right where my mouse is kind of circling? So this is where the layers are. We're going to unlock this just by clicking it. And I'm going to rename this. This is my back. Always duplicate a backup. Always. So this is the original red. Just going to call it that. And we're going to duplicate this. And I'm going to rename this to modifications. So I've always got the original just in case I need it. And I can, let's say that I quickly change the color. I can click the little eye icon and I can compare it to the original very quickly like that. Okay. So let's start by changing the reds. So we're going to go into adjustments. Oh, go away. And hue and saturation. Then I'm going to go into the mask, this bit here. Right click, create clipping mask. That means that it only applies, any changes you make only applies to the layer underneath it. So the modifications. If I unclipped it, it would apply to all the layers. So let's go to the hue and saturation. We want to select the reds because we don't want to change everything. We just want to change the reds. You can see here. If I click red, it'll only change anything that has red in it. Unfortunately, that includes the skin and the hair. So what I want to do now is I want to isolate just those red bits. So I'm going to drag this out so it's bigger. And I'm going to change the saturation to be really bright. And I'm going to mess with these sliders down here. I'm going to bring this yellow to the left. And you can see the skin is gone now. If I go to the right, the skin is there. So I'm going to do that because I only want the red. I think I still see some skin, so I think I need to go a little further. That looks good. That looks good. Okay. So now if I want to change just the bra, there it is. Only that changes. Let's bring the saturation back down to 0. And I'm just going to drag this back up here because I don't like having it. Oh god, this never works properly. There we go. Okay. So let's bring my reference images because we want to match the art style across all of these different units. So there's my amber and there's my brown leather. We want to make, we want to make the red match this amber color. So let's go back to the saturation layer and we'll slowly change it until it looks just right. So 20, 25, 30. That looks too yellow. I think 25 looks decent. Now you might notice we have some problems here. This part of the texture isn't working. That's because I cut off too much of the yellow. So we can always go back. Make sure the red channel is selected. And we can always increase it gently. But that might mess with some of the skin. Nope, looks good. Nope, that works. Oops, I don't want it there. Okay. If you have little bits of your texture that don't look good, like this, you see this staircase over here, we can go on the left to the smudge tool. Make sure you have the actual image selected, not your color changing. That is not the right brush. Make sure you have an actual proper brush selected. With soft edges, we're going to decrease this to 15. Nope, that's too big. Decrease to 10. No, that's still too big. These textures are very small. And you can smooth it over. Oop. Where's... Yeah, just like that, you see? And you can just smooth it. Now, you're not actually going to see this because I've tried looking for these sort of stuff in-game, but you don't actually see it. The models are too small. It doesn't matter. So, but if you want to, this is how you would do it. So we've got the gold looks nice now. So now we need to change the greens. Did I change the lips? I did. Okay, yeah, so we're having some problems. Can you see those weird issues? Hold on. Oh, the chat's disappeared from me. Yeah. So you can see the skin. There's issues there. There's two ways we can fix this. If I go back here and I lower this yellow bit down again, they disappear. But then we get that smudge on the armor. So what we can do is we can lower this again, remove some of this yellow selection to make the skin look better. But then we got that green thing. So I would say the quickest and easiest way to fix this one is just to tighten the selection of colors, and then we'll go back down to the armor and we'll just smudge it to sort of get rid of this greenish bit here. You can just smudge it like that. The other way to do it is, where's my color? There. We can increase this again slightly. But what you can do is you can go through with an eraser, select the eraser tool, make it bigger, say 7. And what you can do, make sure you have the color layer selected, and you can just, delete this from the selection, and you can slowly get rid of these bits. Now, in this some textures are going to be very tricky and difficult, and you're going to have to do something like this. On this occasion, it's unnecessary. It's easier to just smudge the armor than it is to do all of this nonsense. And you can erase with anything. You can use the eraser tool to erase directly. You can do a box selection and press delete. You can use the polygonal selection if you want to cut out the face. And you can delete like that. There's basically, as long as you have the color layer selected, if you see on the color layer, the white is everything that is being changed. If it is black, it will not be changed. It will stay like the original. Now the lips are a bad color, so we're actually going to delete the lips from the selection. So click the eraser. I've got to click on the layer underneath and then on this layer again. I don't know why. And we're just going to delete the changes to the lips. So the lips now look like they did originally. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Do you have any questions so far? Shit, my pajama trousers are... Okay, cool. So let's change these greens to make them brown. So we want to match this brown leather here. That's why I have my reference image. You can always disable that if you want to see what you're doing. I'm going to move it over her hair because I don't need to change the hair. Now this is going to be difficult because this green has some brown and yellow in it. So this is going to be painful. Let me think about how best to do this. Let's do another hue and saturation. Create clipping mask again, so it only applies to our modification layer. Let's select these greens and let's desaturate. Yeah, you see the greens aren't even being selected there, only the background. That means we need to widen it. Let's go here. I think we need to go to the left because there's yellow. And as I move this slider, it's slowly going to desaturate. Now some of these yellows are straight up yellow, so we're going to have to change the yellow layer as well. Okay. We want to exclude these golden armor pieces. So let's delete that saturation layer. Select the modification, the actual texture, and we're now going to go through and we're going to select these yellow pieces that we don't want to change. So the polygonal tool on the left, you've got different tools here. I'm just going to select these golden pieces of armor. And once you've made your first selection, you need to hold shift and this will add. Then just click once and then you can let go of shift. And we're going to do this bit here. Don't worry about all that green, it doesn't really matter. That's the background green. I'm going to hold shift to do another selection. Doesn't have to be perfect. Again, these textures, you see them from far away. Even in third person, you don't really see that much detail, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Now, when we try to change the yellow on this green, it's also going to change the skin colors, so we're going to have to do a little bit of trickery to make this easier. There we go. I'm going to hold shift. We're going to select the boobs now. Hold shift. There we go. Hold space and you can drag around while you're zoomed in. Space and left click. Now let's hold shift so we can add to the selection. The textures are pretty bad to begin with anyway, so it's, a game this old with such low resolution textures is always going to be difficult to get your textures just right. It is what it is. There are other selection methods. You can use the magic wand. I have done that before. So it's up to you, whatever you're quickest with, most comfortable. Okay, I believe that is all of the yellow bits. I'm going to right click and I'm going to save selection in case I need to do this again. And this is the amber plates. The color amber, I mean. We're going to save that. While the selection is still active, now we're going to go into adjustments and do a hue and saturation. And notice the difference between the first saturation layer and this second one. You see most of it is black and it's just got a few of these golden bits. We don't want that actually. So Control Z, Control Z. We want the opposite. We want the inverse. So select inverse. So now only the white bits will change and the black bits will not change. So if we select the yellows and we desaturate them into gray, you can see the rest of the image goes gray. and the golden bits stay the way they are. So that's how that works. And again, you can use the eraser to remove additional pieces. So let's say that we desaturate completely, but now the skin tone, the color of the skin, is desaturated. What we can do, select the eraser, zoom in, and we can erase this bit here. And you see what that does, right? Now let's see if we can isolate the skin from the leather. Again, we're gonna drag this out. Let's see. There we go. But I can see some of the yellow is starting to come through there. Yeah, some of that yellow is coming through. How far can I go before the skin starts to lose color? I think that's a good value there. And actually, because we're turning this into brown, I don't actually need to get rid of that yellow. So, we could bring the saturation back up and change the hue until we get brown. Here's a quiz. What is brown? How do I get brown? Do you know? No. Brown is orange, but desaturated and darkened. So let me show you. Let's open up a new 256 by 256. Let's say that I paint. Let's find orange. Let's get an orange. And let me paint this orange. Let me do a hue and saturation. Let's decrease the saturation by -50 and the darkness by -50. Do you see? It's starting to look brown. So brown is basically red, yellow, and orange, but you desaturate it and you darken it. So what we want to do here is we want to go towards orange. You can already see it's starting to look brown, but there's still too much green. Then you can desaturate it, say -25. Darken it. Oops, shit. -25. And it's starting to look a bit browner, but it doesn't look perfect. Because we've got too much color variation in these sections, I think there's an alternate method we can do, which is to colorize. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop the saturation all the way down, and all of these bits are now gray. No, we can't colorize this because we don't have it selected. This is going to be too difficult to select. We could... Yeah, no. I would have to do a lot of selection here, which is going to be very tricky. Let's see if we can get a good result. -57. Let's go -25 darkness. It looks okay-ish. One thing we can do, we can just take this in-game and see how it looks. So let's delete this. I'm going to exclude the hair. Let's remove the hair from this selection. So we're just gonna make sure we have the color layer selected. Because I like the color of the original hair, so we're just gonna keep that the same. Gonna backspace. If I make a bad selection, just hit backspace and it'll go back as many times as you need to go back. And you can apply this to pretty much anything. You can apply this to weapons, armor. I just happen to be doing an actual character. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna delete, and that will bring the hair back to its original color. Let's actually Control Z, because this has gone green now and I don't want that. So the best way to is to go magic wand. No, not magic wand. Quick selection. Hit the Alt key and that'll remove. And I'm slowly going to click until we get rid of this bit here. Now let's delete. That's fine. Let's save the Photoshop file. This is not actually saving the texture. Let's see how this looks. I'm not too happy with these browns. If you do want to change these, you know what, I'll do it. I've got time, so it's going to be boring for you though. But let's just see how this looks. So we're going to save as DDS. I think, is this 1 or 2? This is 1. So we want to save over 1. Yep. So this doesn't have transparency. So you want to, on the top here, you want to select color, not both. And you want to make sure that you're exporting in the correct format. For if a texture file doesn't have transparency, then it is BC1, and it is BC3 if it does have transparency. But again, make sure it's selected correctly on the top right. That's all we need. We don't really need to mess with anything. You can also generate bitmaps. I think this is already set to generate bitmaps, so we're just going to save. And there's our new texture. Copy the texture, go over into your Spellforce, paste, and we just need to assign this to the character in the data editor. So what was the item? The item was 3646. So let's assign this. We're going to find my character, which is Lycand, the wood elf from Iloni. Unit General. Where is she? Is that not how you spell her name? Oh, there she is. For some reason I can't paste, so I have to 3646. It won't let me paste. There it is. We're also, so we'll just save. Because I'm modifying the actual texture, I'm not adding a new texture. So let's load up the game and see how that looks. And then I'm going to do it the proper way, which is going to be painful. Ignore my naked character. Okay, so I haven't changed the cape, so that's still going to be the original, but if we just look at the character portrait, you can see the brown leather and the amber. Again, that red bit is part of the cape, because that has transparency. So from a distance, you know, that brown looks decent. Let's bring our character closer. What do you think? Does the brown look okay? Again, ignore the red and the green. Those colors actually look decent. Again, you're not going to see like all of this crazy variation like from a distance where you're going to see it in game. Now, if you want to do this correctly, you want to use the colorize method. What you would do is, let's disable this. I'm going to hover over the white and black bit of my color. I'm going to hold control and I'm going to click. And that'll make the exact same selection again. And I'm just going to make a new saturation layer just to show you the difference. Now we're going to go, or actually we're going to duplicate because that's going to have the same selection. We're just going to duplicate this. Duplicate. There it is. Make sure everything is clipped. Okay. So we're going to go to the yellows. We're going to remove our changes, accept the saturation, and we're going to lower it. Now let's take a look at her gloves. The colorize method, what you're going to do is you're going to make your selection. I think you actually need to have this selected, the actual texture. We're going to make the selection here, the gray parts. And what we're going to do, adjustments, and we're going to do color balance. And I think color balance should always be at the top. So this will only change that glove because we had the glove selected when we made this layer. Now we know brown is orange desaturated. Now what the colorize does is it applies a more even color. The hue and saturation, it shifts all of the colors. So because we have green bits and yellow bits in the brown, in the original texture, those will be shifted slightly different, which is why it looks kind of weird. This method applies a more even color, so we're going to make orange. So we're going to go 10 red, or let's go 25 red, and we're going to go minus 25 yellow. Now we've got a bit of a problem in that this isn't coloring very well. You can do. So color balance has 3 options. You have midtones, shadows, and highlights. Let's try changing the shadows. There we go, that's better. Because this is dark. So 25 for red, minus 25. We can do the midtones as well. Minus 25. And this is already brown because it's already grayish. And then on top of this layer, no, you need to select hue and saturation. And then you can mess around with it to make it sort of a darker brown. Desaturate it if you want it. There, that looks better. So you would combine color balance with hue and saturation just to get it looking just right. This is how you apply a more even color across a texture. Unfortunately, this means you're going to have to go through and select all of this leather here. And that's going to take a long time. I might do it. I think I'm happy with it for the time being. At some point in the future, I might actually go and select all of these little leather bits. what I could do is I could say select this in bulk. Select that. Then do an adjustment layer. Create. Oh, that's already clipped. Desaturate it so it's all gray. Take the eraser and then paint out these little bits. This might be the easiest way to do it, and you just have to do this bit by bit. Unfortunately, unless you're actually trained in a university to use Photoshop, it's just going to be slow for people like you and me. You can try doing what I said. You can try doing some trickery to select things in bulk, but this is about the best you're going to get. And like I said, you can use the rectangle selector to select the brown leather strap here and delete. That's selected too much. So we're going to hold Alt and go like that. Delete, there you go. And you can do selections like this. And let's just finish this up and I'll show you the result when we colorize. So again, let's just do this again. Just be careful with your brush. And you can use the polygonal tool again to do little cutouts. So we could do this if you wanted. Delete, there we go. And if we now go and colorize this, what's this? Do I need this? Don't think I need that. So now let's go color balance. And again, we'll go 25. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Remember, you gotta select the thing again. So control click and that'll select this again. And now we go color balance. See, even I forget sometimes. And it'll only apply to this part of the image. So 25 red minus 25 yellow. It's already looking like brown. We could even go actually that might be good enough. But you can go shadows if you really want a more vibrant brown. And then you can always go control click again to get the selection back. And then go hue and saturation, and then you can just desaturate it and darken it if you want. So just play around with things like this. This is basically how you do it. I think I'm happy with the way it looked before. I've got a lot of work to do, so if I decide in the future, you know, let me improve this a little bit, I'll come back to it. But this is the basics of how you get this done. You can, if you want to, let's say we want to make this part of her boobs look like hair. You can, this is on the texture layer. You can do this. Take a selection of her boobie. This is, I call it texture transplanting. And you got to be careful with this. You can do this. And you can now click inside to move the selection. And what you can do is you Control C, Control V. That's clipped. We need to unclip it for some reason. So release clipping mask. And we're just going to move it. And you can do something like this. Now this doesn't look too good, so you can do a brightness and contrast. You can change the opacity, say down to 50%. Or maybe 75. You probably want the underlying texture to, instead of being red, for it to be brown. You can do texture transplanting like this. I've done this for a few. I made a shield where I took a robe texture from a robe and I put it on the shield to make the shield look like it had cloth on it. So this is one last thing that you can do as well. Okay, that's it. So I'm going to save this VOD and I'm going to upload it to my YouTube channel as well. So if you ever want to access it, just access it whenever you want. So